Welcome to Unleash Your Inner Goldilocks, how to get it just right. Thank you so much for joining us for another hour of exciting and invigorating conversation, and I cannot wait to get started. What is empowerment? And why are we talking about empowerment, and why the Goldilocks community embraces empowerment? It's something very deep and meaningful, and that is what we are going to be talking about today. What does empowerment mean to you? How are we embracing empowerment, and how are we bringing that forward in the way we live? And how is this being made possible? Today's topic is going to be real talk for seeding empowerment at home. And I cannot wait for you to meet our special guest, Manisha Gupta. Manisha, welcome to the episode.
Thank you, Dr. Cass. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to the conversation.
Me too. So as we get started, let's take a moment and think about what is Goldilocks reminding us in terms of empowerment, and how can we take a page from Goldilocks to model for ourselves. To me, Goldilocks is that young girl who knew inherently what she wanted, when she wanted, and how she wanted it. And she wasn't afraid to go after it, but she also knew exactly how to go after it without disrupting or causing damage to anything else. Right? That is key to remember. Do we remember when we were young children that we innately had that capability? If we don't remember our own lives, because sometimes we only remember from age 4 or 5 onwards, but remember your children, remember your neighbors' children, your nieces, nephews, your younger siblings. Do you remember how they, with a smile, without even saying words, before they could even speak, they had all the adults wrapped around their little finger, and they could get what they want out of the adults by merely influencing with body language, their presence, and they innately tapped into the God-given empowerment. They were empowered to embrace what they believed they needed to succeed in life and thrive. We are all born with it. It's a gift we come into this world. Even a little kitten and a puppy got it, right? Somewhere along the way into adulthood, we've been conditioned to believe that only certain things, certain ways are acceptable as social norms. And we've let go of that empowerment. We have let go of the inherent innate power. And so as adults, how do we reclaim it? And then as parents, as leaders of both organizations and society, how do we continue to cultivate it in the young ones so that they don't lose it like we've lost it and we had to regain it? To me, that is what Goldilocks is reminding us. And Goldilocks, in her very quiet, dainty, but purposeful way, is showing us that it's okay. It's okay not to want it too hot or too cold, not to want it too hot or too soft, but find that centeredness and be empowered to find that balance, and from that balance influence everything around to then thrive and pursue your prosperity. And the beauty of finding that prosperity and thriving in that place of centeredness is the automatic creation of shared prosperity. Because when I am able to find the centeredness, I am seeing a situation from everybody else's perspective as well. Mm-hmm. I am not going to come from a very selfish, self-centered, I have to win and you have to lose mentality. I'm going to come from how can I make everybody win so that you have a reason to show up and play with me. You have a reason to engage with me. And it's in this sweet spot that the magic happens. And imagine the beauty of teaching this and reinforcing this in our young ones, our young employees, our early career employees. And then all of a sudden, homes, communities, organizations are in a much different place. So let's embrace our inner Goldilocks. Let's unleash our inner Goldilocks. And let's jump into this amazing conversation of empowerment and how to seed it from home and then cultivate it across the life of a developing young person. And to have this conversation with me is Manisha Gupta joining us from California. Manisha, welcome to the episode. And once again, it is such an honor to have you. And for those of you who are curious who Manisha is, I'm going to give you a very small introduction. She's a tech executive who understands the importance of empowerment and being a true leader who can lead through empowerment. And so her conversation, her story as both a mother and a tech executive is going to form the framework for this conversation. So as we get started, Manisha, tell us how you got into the world of technology, and you are in a world where originally it was a man's world. Mm-hmm. So you were empowered to get into a man's world and still be successful at the same time without losing sight of who you are and what you represent. Talk to us about what that journey was like, because to us, that is going to be your empowerment journey.
Thank you, Dr. Cass, for having me on the show. I definitely, resonate with what you said in the early part of this conversation about Goldilocks. So gave me a new perspective on thinking about her beyond just reading her story. So thanks for that. My journey into tech. So I will not say it was easy, but it depended on being persistent and to a large extent on having confidence to continue on the path I had chosen for myself. So I'm an explorer. I like to try different things and really, maybe the word is center, like you said, it not too soft, not too hard. So I did economics honors in my undergrad and got fascinated with computers because it was very new at that time. It just had opened up right behind my Hindu college. And I remember walking in, talking to some counselors, and they were looking for teachers because it was really new. It was like 95 time in India, right? And bottom line was that I walked out with a contract that I will learn for free from them, and I would teach back in 2 weeks' time after I had learned the session because they were short on teachers too. Okay. So it was perfect. So from economics, computers started as a hobby, and for me, it was just a tool which enabled me to do homework in 2 hours instead of the whole weekend. With economics, you have to play with a lot of numbers, so Excel was fascinating. And then it just felt like the right thing to do, so I continued doing it. After economics, normally, in India, careers are very much structured. So you're supposed to do MBA or you're supposed to go to D school. And I was like, no, I'm going to do my master's in computers. Again, very few schools were there, but did it and then found a job in the US. And Bay Area is really a land of opportunities for technologists. So when we came here, the opportunities were plenty, but definitely two things, your accent, your way of communicating as an Indian in a foreign land, and definitely to some extent being a girl in a, male dominated technology took some time. But I think if you are clear about what you like and the doing is fun for you, then it's really surrounding yourself with a few people who are constantly supporting you. And in my case, my husband and my parents have been definitely those people. And now it's my daughters, right?
Okay.
So yeah, so you would have some Friday evenings where you would be like doubting yourself. Is this really the right field for me? Or sometimes you're just figuring out how to navigate the professional journey, professional arena, and you get some coaching and some counseling. And I mean, worst case, you will stumble, you'll fall, and you get up again. So that's how I paved my path. And I was always very comfortable asking questions if I did not know. And somewhere I think one thing good about the male dominated society is if you have done your homework to ask the right questions, oftentimes somebody pops up with, okay, this person needs a sponsor or a mentor. So I was very lucky to also have very good mentors across all my jobs. Right. And yeah, just
So
had
those
to.
are, you made a few key important points that I want to reiterate. You took the chance and agreed to do something in order to learn and let your curiosity take a life of its own.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that is key. Empowerment is allowing our inner curiosity to flourish instead of being afraid to take that first step. Have the innate power to take that first step. And our stories are so similar. I was a refugee child in India, and I asked the nuns, can I teach the computer lab? Because the lady running the lab got a job and actually got a master's in the United States, and she was coming here. And she said, Cass, I will teach you to run this. You can run this. And so I taught basic Fortran and COBOL programming for the nuns first, and then ran the computer labs, and then went on to get my master's, my undergraduate degree in computer science. So I hear what you're saying. And this was in 89 to 91. So it was the time technology was coming out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
India was poised to develop techies for the world and be ready when the world opened up for technology. And I, having come from Sri Lanka into India, had the benefit of taking advantage of that. So I truly applaud you for taking that first step. Most people will be afraid. So for those who are wondering, should I ask questions? Do I volunteer to do something I'm curious about to test my wings on? Should I or should I not go there? What advice do you have for them? Because to me, that is empowerment in action.
Absolutely. I would say, we hear the Nike slogan, just do it. Like, see, worst case, your answer is anyways no. Worst case, nobody's coming to help you. So, like, why even die with that question in your heart, right? If it's popping, just do enough homework so you're not wasting anybody's time. You're respectful. And I have this formula of like number of levels up you go. So I would reach out very shamelessly to anybody in any organization, CEO down, doesn't matter. And I actually always felt that they were probably appreciated the fact that a newbie was reaching out to us, because they also wanted to make sure that the people on the ground are doing what they want them to do, right? So asking a question from a CEO, as long as the question created value in their life, and they felt like mentoring me was never a problem. So, but I would spend 30 hours. Literally, it was genuine questions, genuine curiosity, not for the heck of asking a questions. You work hard and then you've stumbled, like you have no idea how to move forward. So those times Google were not there, Dr. Cass, you
Oh,
would
yes.
remember. Yeah, so it's books and you
There was
flip.
no internet.
No internet, so you talk with people and you read a few books and you're stuck, and like, okay, I'm stuck now. And well, I had this email thing which was easy to reach out to anybody, so I said, okay, I'm stuck, you started this company, can I get 15 minutes with you to understand how do I think about it. And normally people, so advice would be just do it, do the homework, right? So don't do it for the heck of doing it, because you will be seen. People are smart, right? You will, and your reputation builds with every question, every curiosity that you service up. You are building your reputation. So as long as literally those snippets were really questions, which became questions for my leaders in my early stages. And so they became intellectually stimulating conversations. And guess what happens? You become visible for the right reasons, not for being a nuisance. And my curiosity, it's funny because the more you fan it, the more it grows.
Mhm.
um, and the more context you have, the more people, like senior people, Kim was a CEO at Fat Brain. I remember reaching out to him early stages. Rodney was heading sales. I mean, my first job in US, I reached out to Rodney, and he literally sat me down, and this is how marketing works in the US, Manisha. I was like out of college, right? So like, great, I mean, awesome learnings. But then he left me answering my questions and a lot more questions to follow. So I had to do the same thing. Homework, research, just do it, ask again.
So I love how you are building on the theme you introduced. So be curious, do your homework, and then follow up authentically with genuine interest so that your ability to learn and grow is also teaching the leaders on how to cultivate others and how to grow their business in a way that it's understandable and meaningful to the audience, right? So everybody wins.
Yes.
And so the empowerment gives you the ability to go there. Empowerment gives you the human state of not being shy or not being afraid or thinking those questions shouldn't be asked, right? A lot of times people don't ask because they're afraid to ask or they are intimidated in asking questions.
Yeah.
And so you made a good point that even in a man's world, if you ask the right questions and you approach it right, they will step up and mentor you. What I have found, I also entered the world of finance as a 21-year-old into a completely man's world in fintech.
Yeah.
And what I found is as long as I didn't show up with a chip on my shoulder, like I entered the world in Asia, so gender was not an issue, especially in Sri Lanka. We were a women-dominated society. Women were leaders. So the gender never played a part, but the age did. I was 21 and everybody else on my team was 45 to 50, right? So how do we truly engage without allowing that to become a barrier? If we don't wear it like a cloak and use it as an excuse or always remind people I'm young, I'm young, I'm young, that's a problem. But if we are able to show up authentically as a person, as a being, and then ask those curiosity questions, we're inviting others to step in and help us. So I appreciate the way you've presented that, because even in a man's world, men are willing to step in if we don't put barriers based on the chips on our own shoulders.
100%. 100%. Yeah.
So you're raising daughters in the United States where the gender gap exists. How are you guiding them and advising them to show up as they are without apologizing, without giving excuses? Because you've seen this in meetings when women have ideas, they say, oh, I'm so sorry, I don't know if this is relevant, I don't know if this is a good idea, and then they share their idea.
Yeah.
We always give ourselves an excuse and somehow preface it with whatever I'm going to say may not be important, it may not be right, it may not be relevant. How do we break those bad training and teach our children how not to do it ever?
I'll respond back with two things here. So one is forget about the gender and the age, everything, right? If we literally just say you're in a crowd and we in a conference and we say, well, stack rank the top 100 people by merit. It's not going to be just male. It's not just going to be 50-year-old, right? You will have some women, you'll have some young, you'll have an old. Automatically, diversity will be very visible just on merit, right? So I believe, like, exactly, don't wear the chip. And like, no matter which book you read, intellectual or I'm not promoting any specific religion here, but like Jesus said, don't, forgive them because they don't know what they're talking about, right? So that is in me. Like, okay, they have not seen the world. They don't understand how merit works. So sometimes I just give myself confidence with, it's been a very myopic world. So they are looking at it from that lens. Maybe the bigger lens is what I need to bring to the table, right? So I only play on merit. My coaching to the kids I mentor and as well as my daughters is increase your credibility for the world, right? So if you have something to offer, nobody can take it away from you. But first step is build credibility. Second step is confidence and communication also, right? So how do you that is where the I'm really sorry and your body language and everything comes in, because you're giving away your power without anybody seizing it. It's like literally I'm giving it to you on a platter. So then I just ask them, well, how many other kids or how many other people you work with start a conversation with sorry? Very few do, right? So then why would you do that to yourself? So but as far as you're respectful and you're bringing value to the table, all you need is a clear communication and a confident communication. And sometimes, like in my early days, I have started the meeting with, today we are brainstorming, right? Or are we making a decision? So really get the context right. If you're brainstorming, then all of us, why don't we just throw ideas at the table? If you're making a decision, then we can just say, okay, what is the framework for decision making? And it cannot be who spoke first or even who spoke. It's got to be what is right and how do we get there, right?
Mhm.
So like one tip if I could give, Dr. Cass, would be like identify what rules make the world a level playing field. And they are credibility, they are confidence, they are clarity, they are compassion. So just play on those and make them your strengths. Everything else, like gender differences, ethnicity differences, age differences, they are all man-made constructs, and
Mhm.
man-made constructs disappear if we cease to box ourselves on those constructs. I'm going to give it back to you. You summarized very well.
No, that is very well said, brilliant, because I too am a believer that good, bad, black, white, right, wrong, they are man-made constructs. They are very dogmatic. They are, to me, false dichotomies,
Mhm.
because life doesn't exist on either extreme. A life exists in a continuum, in the gradation of all the grays, right? It is not black or white. It is
Yep.
not right or wrong. It's choices and consequences of choices.
Hmm.
So if we understand that and we come from that place, all of a sudden the world of possibilities open up. And now we can come with our human skills. Research shows that both employers and employees are looking for two basic human capabilities or human qualities in the workplace and in society: compassion and resilience. Employers want individuals who are compassionate and resilient to come work for them. And employees want organizations that have compassion and that they are resilient to transcend all the changes the world is going through today.
Mhm.
The technical skills we can gain, the human skills we have to bring. And this is where starting empowerment at home becomes critical. So I want us to slightly pivot and go to your role as a mom for two daughters. And how are you creating an environment where they are cultivating their human skills of kindness and compassion and having the ability to deal with challenges with grace and hold space for others and build resiliency?
Yes, my favorite topic for sure. So I'll maybe just go back to history a little bit. This is Naveli, my firstborn was born. She was 2 days old. And, we Sri Lanka, India, similar backgrounds, I guess. So we came back from the hospital. She was in my lap. And like literally every family member had views on what is right for her, right? I
Mhm.
remember I was just looking at her. I was like, what do you really want? Like, will you not talk to me? And, you're tired after labor and all that stuff. So you're a little bit in your transcendence. And it just stuck with me. Like, I need to find a way to have a conversation with her. And it just stuck. Like, you and I will become the best friends, Naveli. And doesn't matter what the world is saying. It's going to be
Mhm.
about what you want. So for me, it started with like a way of saying everybody needs to have a voice and we need to give space for them to express themselves. And if you very closely watch like pets or even young infants, they are communicating with us. We just stop listening to them and stop observing. They have their own ways of communicating, not your language, but they are communicating, trying their best. So I think from very early days, I started focusing on that. And then the second thing was also implicit in that was sometimes we sort of like become too strong of a force that does not let them, um, like fly within the environment, right? And there's research, right? Your neurons are growing really fast until you're 14. So really the first 14, 18 years of your life, whatever environment you give them is what their personalities become to a large extent. And then we can do cleanup and all that stuff. But why even go there? So that seed stayed with me, and at every step of the way, for me, it became more like it's four souls living in a house who happen to have different genders and different ages and different experiences. But like we come from this land also where you talk about souls never die and all that stuff. I was like, so what's the guarantee that Naveli is not way, way, way mature than I am? It's a matter of time. We will see. Right? Maybe she will teach me something in life. So all I need to do is make sure that she becomes who she's born to become, right? So I am playing a role of a mother, and just like you are at work, a manager, you play a role. So I was really, modesty apart, I'm good at what I do in professional journey. I went through so many trainings. I went through executive coachings, all that stuff. As a parent, it's like, congratulations, now figure it out, right? So I started like understanding what was being taught in the professional world and what it meant to apply in the personal world. And the way you coach your teams, the way you grow them is pretty much, to a large extent, not exactly the same. Pretty much understanding the principles of empowerment, listen to them, let them have their own voice, encourage them through coaching, not through telling. Why did you really do that, Naveli? Or, you didn't finish your break for today. Tell me why you didn't do that, and what is your plan for tomorrow? Or for me, myself as a manager, we used to have this word called magic, where the magic disappear. Growing up early, we coined words, and I'm a big fan of phrases. So if you come to my house, everywhere there's like a picture that we have drawn or a quote that we have. There was one magic, which is don't let the magic disappear, and they would say, "Mom, you're stealing my magic now," like, and magic being curiosity.
Mhm.
So, I know this is becoming long-winded, so stop me when you want me to stop. But I'll give you one more story. So Nitya, my second, was 4 years old. We went to see the movie Avatar. First day, first show, we were like great fans. You're sitting, and Nitya, in between the movie, there are blue men and there are brown men. Blue men are being the avatars, these creatures who have come to Earth, right? And we are trying to basically tame them. So 4-year-old child, she looks at me like, "Are we the blue men or the brown men?" I said, "Well, we are the brown men." And she's like, "Oh my God, brown men are bad. I want to be the blue men. I don't like brown." And then she started howling. I said, "Shh, shh, it's okay, fine, we are fine, we are fine." So the movie ends, and I'm like, every time she starts to speak up, I'm like putting my hand on her mouth. I'm like, "Shh, don't make noise." The movie ends. Sweet lady, sitting 3, 4 seats to my right, she stands up and she says, "You are a very nice person. Blue or brown does not matter." Right? And then she looks at me, she's like, "Why would you shush a 4-year-old? It's okay, we understand." And I was like, I came back home feeling so shitty. I was like, yes, I'm killing her curiosity. Maybe I could have just stepped out and explained to her instead of me wanting to watch the movie and like literally focusing on quietening her. So throughout till now, like we have this thing of don't steal my magic. I have a question, don't do that. And we have so many more examples like that. But I think it's really understanding your journey and you're helping them very early stages with the right
Mhm.
questions. So sorry, I'm gonna give it to you.
No, 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 no. Don't apologize. So the two vignettes that you shared, there are some very critical pointers, right? You started with children are communicating. 70% of communication is nonverbal, even as adults.
Mhm. Yeah.
Only 30% or less is verbal. So if we're only listening with our ears and we're not listening with our eyes and our heart and our mind, we are not fully taking it in,
Mhm.
right? That is one thing to remember. If I am empowering others and I want to be empowered, I have to listen with my entire being. It's not a function just for the ears. And I love this, since you're talking about quotes, I love this quote from Paul Tillich. Paul Tillich talks about how the first act of love is to listen,
Mhm.
right? And so, as a mother, you learn to listen to your child because the child will tell you when they're not feeling well, when they're hurting, when they're hungry, when they're scared. And listening to the child allows us to nurture the child before the child learns how to talk,
And the
right?
trust develops, right? The
Yes.
trust develops because they just see the signals. Like they could just, my Naveli learned, she potty trained herself, literally, because she'd one accident and she saw me cleaning up. She felt she was 14 months old, very young, not like talking full sentences properly. I said, "It's okay." And she's like, "Not okay. Mama dirty, not okay." And that's it. And no more accidents because she was so much in pressure, right? And we have heard stories of 4 years old who don't get trained because the parents are like forcibly doing things on their behalf. So one thing I think you said earlier, Dr. Cass, was empowering is like also doing what you want to do. So when we can literally turn that light bulb on in them, she wanted to be trained, and and she trained herself is the way I think of it, right? And we just have to give that environment and that confidence and trust that we are right behind you if you fall, but move to the next level of life. And she did it.
Yes. And another important point you made, I don't want to lose this, is the fact that every human being is a soul with a story and a journey. They just happen to come in. I mean, we believe that they happen to come into our family physically, but the soul, the spirit, the essence is larger than the presence in this family. So they bring something in, right? So we don't understand or yet know the maturity or the strength of that soul. So why stifle it? And be open to learning from every soul. And if we take that approach with our children, then hopefully we can take it with other people's children, and then we can build a better world. And what a powerful lesson to teach our children that they are a being. We don't have to give it a diminutive status and say it's a little being. No, it is a being, but physically it's in its infancy, but we don't know the maturity of the soul. So give it space, be open to learn. And to me, that was one of the most powerful things you said. How does that manifest in the workplace? And how do you make it possible for that same philosophy to take shape at work? Because then you are also cultivating the magic at work.
Yeah. So, talking about quotes, like, there's so many great leaders that we have come across. One of the things Stockdale, I know his syndrome is more talked about, but one of the things he talks about is each of us has a role to play, and our roles keep changing, right? So at workplace or in family, I'm a big fan of this notion of teams. And
Mhm.
if you just slice and dice teams, it's different people with different skills who come together to solve or move towards a common goal, right? So your roles have to be clear, your goals have to be aligned, and there has to be emotional trust between us, because things will go wrong sometime. So family, you just have emotional bonds that are a little tighter and stronger, and they're related by blood. At workplace, it's slightly different. You also have some professional boundaries, but in the end, it's the same thing. Are the goals defined well? If you're the leader, when I think first of all, you can be a leader irrespective of the title, because you can start moving things forward at any step. Second, I would say no matter where you are, an individual contributor, a director, manager, a VP, or an executive, it's still a role. And the higher up you go, the higher up I went, I started learning the difference between performing and enabling performance. Right. So it's almost like now you got the A while studying and taking the test. Now you have to get an A without taking the test. How will you do that? So you've got to coach every individual member to, yeah, to do as good as you believe they can do. The one thing I do also want to highlight specifically is, in early stages, I've made the mistake of evaluating the goals of some of my teammates pretty much in line with what I felt the goal of life was. So I'm ambitious. Um, I want to accomplish a lot of things, and I have God has given me the energy to try and explore different paths. Some people love chilling out at 5 in the evening. I'm not one of those all the time, sometimes fine. So just expecting everybody to be ambitious, everybody to really, you can get the promotion, you can go to the next level. I learned that, that's false. That's wrong way of thinking. The right way of thinking is help them achieve what they want to achieve, but maybe are not confident about achieving it. Right. And that all comes from lots of conversations. When when your team starts trusting you, and you're talking about your kids, and which school they're going for and who's falling sick, and beyond work, that is where you know that the team has really bonded beyond work. And at that point, understanding what they really want out of life, and you as their mentor or their coach or their manager title wise, how can you help them achieve there? And once you do that, it's just beautiful. It's a very nice feeling to have empowered someone. I've snippets, cards that I've been collecting throughout my life, which say, well, I never thought I could do this myself, right? So and just being able to help them see how they could have done it, I think is the real role of a manager, both from a social perspective but also from an economic perspective. So I lead HR analytics for Oracle, and I can share this: 33% of your OPEX goes wasted because you hire wrong people for the wrong roles. You don't unleash their full potential because they're not fully engaged, or you don't retain them long enough. But if you just flip this needle to really empower them to do what they want to do in their life, align their goals with the business goals, both will thrive, the individual and the company, right? So it's got economic power and as well as social power. That's how. And I learn from family, apply to work, learn from work, apply to life. I mean, there's no box around an individual. We are still same.
Yes, and I totally agree. It's a continuum. And as long as we keep an open mind, we can borrow and reapply and lift and shift and repurpose. So beautifully said. And with this, I am actually going to open it up to a conversation. Dr. Lewis, I see you're here, and I know you're big into collaboration and big into building sustainable organizations and environments. So go ahead and share your thoughts or questions.
I really appreciate your perspective. I was just reading McKinsey's research right now that says 82% of Gen Zs are quiet quitters. And so you look at that and you go, where have we gone wrong? And so your perspective of how do we match people to their goals, their mission, their purpose with what needs to be done at work, that's something that seems to me is so missing in what we're doing right now. And I also really appreciate your perspective of it's a continuum between work and home, because I think as women, we often get put into this. We allow ourselves, we create it as well. This is home, this is work. And we don't take the tools and back and forth. And there's something so powerful about that force of motherhood. We just aren't always willing to acknowledge how it applies to the workplace. So your perspective on that, I just really have appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lewis. And thanks. I can just respond back to so one of the research I did earlier on, right? Like this whole notion of 3 managers will decide what 10,000 people do. That actually came in industrial times when we were making railroads, right? So you did not need decision makers. You literally just needed hands and eyes. Screw the bolt and get the railways in place. Today, we are working with knowledge workers where everybody, we want them to use their brains. So head, hand, and eyes, like not just, so use your brains. We are hiring you for that. But unfortunately, I think this world will shift. The future of work is anyway shifting. But what has happened is we still see hierarchy at workplace as positions of power. So we say you got promoted to a manager. I think we should say, well, your role is shifting to a managerial role right now. So it's always like the pyramid, literally, we will talk about the books and all, but the pyramid, I think, needs to be reversed when we think about it. Because people who are doing the work are at the pod bob. Who is doing the work? Oh my God, 10,000 people? Who's empowering them? Oh, a bunch of middle managers. Who's really empowering them? A couple of executives. If you just flip it that way, in my mentally, we are here to service you so you can get the things done, because without that, the world is not going to move forward. Instead of the other way around that we draw it today, I think our mental models will shift quite a bit. And that's what I try to do. At home, we do pretty much the same, right? Like whenever your kid is in trouble, like I have money to buy one dress. Most families will choose to buy the dress for the daughter because she has to go to prom, and the mother will, that's fine. I will wear something else, right? We do that very inherently at home because we're emotionally more attached. But when it comes to work, the pyramid in our brains are flipped. So that was like a sort of like a subtle learning. And I would say I'm better at putting these things in words and articulating them now. came more intuitively, and I did not even understand how to say those things. But there's a lot of these snippets. If we just, I mean, listen to ourselves, sometimes there's so much more that we are observing and inherently working on. And like you said, as women, I think even as listening men, for that matter, any human being is who's fully engaged with life, there is so much more that we can listen from just sitting, meditating, listening to ourselves, looking at our own actions. What gave me happiness? The last time I bought that dress for Novelia and I did not for myself, it just felt something nice about it. Like the last time I enabled my reportee to speak up in a conference and I sat in the um, audience, but I mentored the hell out of this person, so he really, blew up, like, in a crazy nice manner on the stage, so that, now people are appreciating him. Automatically it feels good to us. We just don't take that time sometimes, I think, to listen to us and to connect the dots.
Mhm.
But I think the other thing that we as women sometimes don't do enough of is stopping and appreciating the people who have really allowed us to move forward. Because we're almost afraid. We think we should have done it on our own, right?
That's nice. I didn't think of it that way, but maybe that's happening. You're right. I mean, I think it goes back to the chip that Dr. Cass was talking about. That chip is so strong that, you know, 99 times you didn't do it, one time you did it. So I'll remember the 99 times, but maybe we start counting the ones. So they became 99. You're very right. Yes.
And it's also social conditioning, right? We are told that if you don't do this and you don't figure it out and you don't succeed, you're a loser. The world wants winners and losers, and only one person can win and everybody else is a loser.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that is another false construct. It's a false dichotomy. And to me, false dichotomies are created by people who want to control everybody else.
True. Very true. I
So
think
what if it's not winning or losing, but my life is enabled by so many others, and I turn around and enable the life of others? I use the term ennobling. Who are the people who ennobled my life so that I can show up as the being that I am? And then how do I take my human qualities of being ennobled and pass it on to ennoble others so that it becomes this cycle, this ecosystem that's self-sustainable? And that is what parenting is. That is what being a leader is. That is what building a resilient organization, community, society is, right? Whatever terminology we use, we come back to that same thing. And so giving credit to somebody and leaning in to somebody for help is not a weakness. It's actually a strength, because we're recognizing somebody is better than us in some area. And how do we gain that confidence and be comfortable in that? And that's what you're talking about, Dr. Lewis. So I love where this three-way conversation is going. And let's make sure we're building on it at both home and at work. Sometimes parents don't give the children the credit.
Can I just add one thing else to what you were saying, both of you? And that is, there's a sense of incredible self-comfort, confidence, but it's comfort with yourself, right? And so then there isn't a sense of jealousy when others succeed. And I think so much with collaboration, with partnering, building trust, you have to let go of jealousy. And we are so caught up, it's sort of what you said, Dr. Cass. If you do better, that means I'm doing less, rather than if you're doing better, that's going to pull me up too. And we're going to both do so much better. But it's really letting go of jealousy so you can move up and forward and out.
One way I would say, I mean, I think I taught myself to overcome that chip. It is, instead of thinking that person is better than me, just say, well, this person helped me become better than I was yesterday. Right? So it's still you fine. I mean, human beings inherently are selfish. It's fine. We are here to enlighten ourselves, grow our soul. I mean, I say it in the more philosophical manner, honestly. So even if you say, I will own all the veins that, all the problems that I'm born with, but there's always, same coin has two sides, right? So flip it. So, okay, fine, I'm selfish, but thank you for helping me become better today. You still
Mhm.
have to say thank you, right? And so it just changes the emotion, the chemical reaction that goes in versus, oh, she did it better. Tomorrow, how will you do better? If the other thing which I've heard myself say sometimes to some people who have very strong problems understanding this concept of jealousy, is like, really, like, how long are you intending to live in this life? 1,000 years or something? Like, why? Like, how many mistakes would you like to make yourself instead of really learning from some other people? Because
Mm.
they are here to share, and it takes a lot of courage for somebody to come and counsel you or coach you or share, right? So thousands and millions of problems have been solved in the past. You can read some books, get some counseling from people who've done that, you know, and just quickly learn and then go ahead and move.
Mhm.
You'll still have problems and you'll still need to grow, but you can grow at 100 miles an hour trajectory or a 10 miles an hour, right? And that decision is still in your hands.
Well said. Well said. Thank you so much, Louis, for your wonderful insights. As always, love having you a part of the Goldilocks community. And Dr. Nandini, go ahead.
Hi, it was a lovely conversation. I really enjoyed the way you brought up the whole nurturing aspect of womanhood and bringing it into the business world and ennobling it that way. My question actually that came up was because of something that you've been talking about, which is the jealousy part. And I'm wondering if that is also partly because of, the misconception of Darwin's um, what is it called? Darwin's theory of evolution, survival of the fittest. And our entire lives, even as children, we are a lot of times compared to one another to get a job, to get into university, to get anywhere in life. And then suddenly, when we come into the world of work, we're still in that mode. So do you have any tips on how to switch that from the theory of survival of the fittest to realizing that Darwin also talked about sympathy and compassion, and survival of the fittest was the fittest group and not individual?
Um, I Okay, I can share some perspective. So, I mean, I think like giving birth to human beings is really powerful, honestly, because it forces us to think so much more. Um, so it happened. Starting point of me wanting to think deeper about it was seeing some very lightweight jealousy breeding between my two daughters, and I don't think it's jealousy. I To start with, I think it's the want for everyone to really make it big, right? Which, if you say, well, the world is small and everybody is wanting to make it big, of course they will start fighting with each other. But what helped was just saying, well, the world is infinite, as are you, right? So it's not like a slot, like there's not only one single dancer. You can have two very amazing dancers in the world and we will have a beautiful show, in fact maybe a better show. I had to understand why kids think that way, because you're right, in schools it's always about number one, it's always about competition. And I think the problem we are definitely creating, Nandini, is I believe you and I are on the same group with Aspire for Her, if I remember your name right. But it's conditioning happens actually at home when we compare our kids. Conditioning happens in our neighborhoods when we compare our kids with their kids. Conditioning happens in schools because teachers are looking for who came first, right? As mothers, and as parents, I think we can definitely play a key role in just saying it doesn't matter what they are saying. What do you want from life? And really treating them as adults when they were very young, having a conversation with them, right? So fine, there's a lot of noise, and I remember saying this: sound is a frequency, it's happening. You choose what you hear and you ignore what you don't. So first of all, what do you want? I want to be a dancer, mom. Okay, what's the problem? Didi is a better dancer, Didi being the elder sister. I said, great, what's the problem? Well, then I cannot be that good of a dancer. I said, why? Because, she is really good. I said, okay, is there any book in this, any universe which says only one of them can be a good dancer? No. Then who's comparing? My teacher said so. I said, okay, then maybe politely go and say, at 6-year-old, I'm the best dancer. At 8-year-old, she's the best dancer. And, when you're big enough, you will be the best team. I will be not modest for a second, but they won Dance USA Dance competition together as a team, right? Because they could not have done it individually. So growing the context to what you could do together. Same stuff can happen at work also. I mean, the problem I think we do create is you promote one and you always explain, I'm promoting you over these people. And I'm working on that within Oracle and some other folks as well. I think this whole notion of um, how promotions work, why managers are treated better than individuals. All of us collectively have to address that together by listening to what individuals want, helping them reach that level, and then really, I think, expanding our context of there's only one role here at the managerial role, but that is not the epitome of success. Each of you is required. And really, if you flip it, the way we were talking about it earlier at work, 10,000 people are actually leading the journey. Only one person is like servicing everybody at the bottom, right? So be happy that you're at the top or wherever you are. I don't think we have the clear answer yet, but I think we are moving towards that.
Brilliant question. And these are things that we need to continue to talk about so that at any given time we are using and applying our collective knowledge and experience to continue to improve humanity and move it forward. And that is ultimately the purpose of this community. And I love the fact that, Nandini, you're here as part of the Goldilocks community, Dr. Lewis. And we have Mr. Cruz Gomez from Belize, the gentleman with us today. Is there anything you want to add for a male perspective into this conversation, Mr. Gomez?
Hi, good morning, ladies. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Very interesting conversation from the perspective of us humans on how we should relate to others in the family and as well in the workplace. It is very encouraging to see the different perspective that is shared in the show weekly. And it gives us a better understanding of how we should behave and how we should treat others in able to grow together, and that is what we want to do more in our society, and especially in Belize, where sometimes we are very divided within our community and within our family. So thanks very much for all the insights that in and out you bring across with your guests and everyone that participates.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Cruz. We appreciate you and we appreciate your continuing participation into this community. And before we wrap this up, Manisha, I want us to take a moment and have you share with the audience how they can stay in touch with you. And I know you have a book, so share with them where they can get the book and how they can engage with you further on this topic by reading the book and taking their own empowerment journey.
Thank you for the opportunity, Dr. Cass, again. So yes, my daughters, they are now 21 and almost 18. Three of us wrote a book during COVID times, reflecting back on our journey together. And I wouldn't say it's a parenting journey because it's three of us co-writing it. Nitya started it. So it's really a journey of how we build each other up, over the last 18 years that we spent together. It was written in COVID when all three of us actually fell sick and we were in 3 different rooms on Google Docs, still wanting to chatter with each other. It's available on Amazon and all the regular channels there, right? So Barnes and Noble, Amazon, hopefully in bookstores as well. So it's called When We Talk, Let's Really Talk. And the subtitle is Empowering Begins at Home. So please take a look at it if you get a chance and definitely reach out. We have a website. It's called Naveed Niti. Naviniti. Navi means new, Niti means rituals. So our hope is that we create new rituals which help us understand each other and bond together. My motto in life and my understanding of life is if families can create wholesome individuals, I think society, workplace, everything is going to be better. So we really have a lot of role to play as parents. If we decide to have kids, I think we need to decide to make sure that we leave them wholesome before they enter the world and outside our house. So that's what I focus on. I'm available on LinkedIn. Professionally, I am a product person. I'm currently the VP of Product HR Analytics for Oracle. So any topic, and I mean, again, my day-to-day life is also about empowering employees and employers. And my, of course, evening job is helping my daughters and my family and my pets. So reach out, please. And thank you, Dr. Cass, for this wonderful show, for the opportunity. Dr. Nandini and Lewis and Cruz, thanks for the wonderful questions and participation. I mean, you both have left me with really good questions that I'm going to ponder on more.
Thank you so much, Manisha. It's been an honor. And congratulations to you and your daughters in bringing this book forward, because it's important for other parents and other children to see how even children can empower parents. It is not a unidirectional process. Just like mentoring and reverse mentoring is not a unilateral thing either, right? So as we go into life, as in the spirit of Goldilocks, let's embrace our empowerment. Let's embrace with confidence who we each were meant to be, because we're each created unique. We each have a purpose. And let's build those relationships inside families and in communities and organizations so that we can truly lift each other up. There is enough. There is enough for all of us if we believed it was enough. So let's raise our children. Like Manisha said, we need to raise wholesome children so that those wholesome individuals come into the workplace. So let's work together, collaborate together, and transform this world so that we each get to live a wholesome life. And in that process, before we realize, we will be transforming ourselves and those we love.
Thank you so much.